So this is the final video on the collective base. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the parts in the end here. So here's my wiring. You'll notice that my blue and my yellow and orange are a little bit short. It took me some time to figure out the best method for doing the wiring and hooking it up to the 8-way pin. I tried soldering it, didn't work well at all. So what I ended up doing was I ended up getting the little connectors that you would use for the Arduino boards. It's amazing how well they fit, almost like they're made for it. So, and I bought this kit right here. It's like $9 or $10 on Amazon. Not bad. So, and in order to hook them up to, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the plug. We're going to do the plug with the potentiometer, the 10K potentiometer. I believe that's a 7mm head on it. And I have another one of these around here somewhere. Here we go. All right. So here's our plug. Now this one here I haven't trimmed. This didn't get trimmed yet. So I should have taken a razor blade and at this point, and you know, just trim it down so it'll go into the tube easier. Otherwise you're going to fight getting into the tube. So this one I have trimmed down, and it's one I did on the original couple of videos that I did really badly on, so I decided to redo them again. So I'm just going to use this one to stick in here, but we're going to use this one to show what we're going to do. So of course we have to put our potentiometer into the plug, and it's going to screw right in. Lubricate the threads. Anytime you're running threads into plastic, lubricate them. Just a little bit of grease, whether you're doing it by hand or mechanically, because it's going to go in a lot easier. And if you start using thinner bolts, which I have some here somewhere, when you use thinner bolts, you actually run the risk of the bolt breaking. So I have some long bolts that go through this. So I believe they might be 2mm or 3mm long bolts that tie all of this together. And I got one of them about halfway in, and it snapped off. And once it snaps off, you're reprinting stuff. So lubricate your threads. We're gonna just pop this in here. Oh, before I pop it in here, let me show you something I did for a little prep work. We run the risk of the corners of the metal pieces, the metal tangs here. We run the risk of them touching the metal tube, which would be bad. So if you take just a pair of dikes, side cutters, dikes, and you trim off the corners off the metal, it'll go in there and they won't touch the edges, which is what we don't want to have happen. You'll also notice that the spot here, let me get my little pick, this hole here, this hole right here is the hole that the wires are going to come through. Someone else had started doing a mod of my design, and a copy of my design, and one of the things that he did was he opened this up completely up all the way down, which allowed more room for the wires to come through. Actually a really good idea, because this is kind of tight, and while the ones that I've built thus far I've used this, I'm always cursing as I'm trying to get the wires fed back down into it. So when you print this, you can take the STL. I'll probably go ahead and make a change to it on the Thingiverse file, and I'll open this up for you. I'll try to get that done today. So we're going to take and we're going to stick our potentiometer up in there. And it's threading in real easy because I've done this a few times with this one. It's not going to be this easy for you. And we need the connector part of it to be 90 degrees from that wire hole, because that's going to line up our shaft. Our shaft's got to be the right way. So it's easiest just to take and grab this with a pair of pliers. Try to stay off the ridge. Try to stay off the top of the part. This land that comes out. Go down low, because if we bung this up a little bit, let me see. See if we bung this up a little bit here, then we're gonna have to file it down, sand it down, because the throttle is going to ride here. We're going to lubricate this, and the throttle is going to ride there. And then it's kind of a I don't want to say a snug fit, but it's a precision fit around here. So any marks that you have here, like you can see, I have little marks there because I grabbed it by pliers at that one time, then sanded it down. This was one of my first ones that I made. So we're going to take that, I'm going to grab a hold of it there, and we're going to take the hard parts on either side of this, and we're going to turn that, and we're going to just turn that. That's going to be a little stiff, but it'll make it. We're going to turn that till we're 90 degrees. Oops. 90 degrees. There we go. And we want to make sure that our, where's my flooded head? There we go. So then we're going to just check and make sure that our center of rotation, there we go, all the way that way. We turn a half a turn and more. So we're going to go back to where we're parallel. Okay, so that's going to be our center position. So we put the throttle on, because the way the opening is, can you see that? Let me move my light. Get a little better light on this. And you see where it rests on there, and so that's going to center up on this slot here. All right. So now we've done that. We put that in. We've cut our corners off of here. Now, I soldered these, and on this one I soldered them, and I had an issue with one of them. Remember I was talking about not touching the metal? So I had an issue with one of them, so I had to take it back apart, and I had soldered everything in. Wow. So it was kind of a pain in the ass to take it all back apart, but it was a learning experience, so now I know. So these pins, these female pins, they don't fit on here very tightly. Now you can put it on there and do a spot of solder, just like, put it on there, do a little spot of solder if you want to. But I have found, and I've used this on other stuff now, and I've found that you can take the pin and you can push the middle part in where it goes down, where it catches on the blade of the connector of the terminal. The terminal. And now it's a nice secure fit. So that's a nice secure fit there. So now I can take and I can attach this to my wire. I also take these little, let's see if you can see them here. The little wings that catch the casing of the wire. I trim them down a little bit. They're a little long. This thing's made to be used in a machine. And my machine, of course, is the pliers that are made for this. You're going to need a pair of these. SN28B. I think they were $9 on Amazon. We all hate Jeff Bezos, but dang. Okay. So I just make sure all these are facing the same direction. Now the 3 wires that are going to be hooked up to this potentiometer are going to be, if you remember from down here, if you remember from here, we had our blue and our yellow were our power and our ground that we used for our potentiometer, and we're going to use those same blue and yellow wires for our power and ground here on our potentiometer up here, our 5-volt reference and our signal return. And so what we need to do is we're going to need to take and add an additional wire on that. We're going to have to take, and you can see what I've done here. We're going to have to take 2 wires, put them together, and I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to do it here because I have other projects going on right now, but I'm trying to help you guys out because you've really been hounding me a little bit. I can understand it. It is kind of a cool thing to have, having a collective. I've been so busy playing with mine that I haven't had time to make yours. So we're going to take and put 2 wires in our terminal. In our terminal. Hey, let me show you how to push down the center of a terminal again. So we're going to push that down a little bit. Doesn't have to catch a hold of it. We're going to trim down the wings just a little bit, like that, like that. We're going to make sure everything's facing straight up and down. Now, I don't have my little pliers. Let me grab my little pliers. I'll be right back. All right. And so if putting 2 wires in this makes it a little on the tight side. So what I do is I go ahead and twist my wires together to make them one. And then once I've done that, I'm going to trim them to the proper length. And I'm going to slide them in. The metal part, the copper part is going to come up here through the part that catches the metal. All right. Now I've got them in there, right? So I have them in there, but they're going to want to fall out when I try to crimp this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little wings that I trimmed down, and I'm going to fold them over a little bit so that they'll catch the wire insulation, part of the wire, like that. And then, see, do I have it in there good? I do. Okay, so let's take that, stick them here like that. Practice with these things before you start doing just your regular work. They take a little practice to get used to using them. So I'm going to crimp that down, and I've got a good crimp on my wires. I got both my wires, and I'm going to make sure that wire terminal's snug. Got a nice snug terminal. And we're going to heat shrink it. So I bought this heat shrink for another project, and it's a larger diameter. It will suck down, as you can see on this one, a single wire and a terminal. It will pull down, but it leaves more material. There's more material in it than I think I would like. I think if I went the smaller one that just fits snugly on here, and then heat shrunk it down, that it would be less material. And so when we're putting a bunch of wires onto this 8-pin connector, it takes up less space. So there's that. So I've done my wire. I'm gonna heat shrink it. Boom. And that's gonna be heat shrink down, and I don't have my hot gun here right now. But it's gonna look like, ta-da, it's gonna look like this. And then of course, blue's gonna go on one side. Pick your side. Doesn't really matter. You can match up what you did down there, which would really actually be the best idea. So that's nice and snug on there. And I'm gonna do the blue with 2 wires. I'm gonna do the yellow with 2 wires. And then I'm gonna do a brown one, just all by itself. Orange. Sweetie? One moment. Sorry, I had to step away for a moment for the yard guy. So we're going to do brown on the middle one. So we have orange coming up from our bottom one, the blue and the yellow, of course, which is going to continue on, and then brown off of this one. So we are going to take our USB cables, our USB wires, which are these 4. We're going to take our other 4 that are gonna come up through for the rest of it, and it's all gonna feed up through this hole. Or when I make it, will be that whole area. You'll be able to just lay them down in there and then push the plug on. For the time being, I am just going to cheat here because I have, some of you know, a couple of the projects going on. I just finished turning my SATEC yoke into a force feedback device. I wanted to see if I could get the whole thing to fit into the SATEC case, and it does, and it works really well, so I'm real pleased with that. But I have a couple of trim pieces that I have on the printer that I have to finish. And then, of course, I started my force feedback pedals. I'm turning my SATEC pedals into force feedback units, which I will be sharing as soon as I'm done with that. So we have everything lined up. So we have our potentiometer on. We have our 3 wires on here, and they're on there snugly. And then we're going to line this up, and we're going to stand this up. And I put this on the top. Why? Because I wanted it on the top. And this is where we're going to swap. So now I'm going to go to the one that I've already trimmed the edges down on. And so we're pretending all these wires are coming up through here, okay? So we'll have 8 wires. Make sure you count your wires. Make sure you have 8. You're going to want to put this sucker on here with the part that's sticking out facing up. And a hammer. Didn't bring my hammer with me. Oh, look. It's going to fit on there tightly. I think I got it lined up. I'm using pliers for the hammer. Sorry about that. Okay. And then we have these little 2x10 countersunk flathead screws, 2mm and 2x10mm countersunk flats. And it's going to go in on both sides. And we have taken and we drilled our hole in the tubes using the jigs, and then we've done a countersunk with a larger drill bit. I don't recall what the size of the larger drill bit was. If you stick a larger drill bit, you can work it in. Go slow till you can get the head of the bolt to be flush, or the head of the screw to be flush, because that's what we need. We need the head of that screw to be flush with the tube. There we go, and it is now flush. All right, so this is where we're at now, and of course we're pretending that we have 8 wires sticking out of here. Now those 8 wires are going to hook up to this piece here. Let me pop this out of here. Let me just pop this out. This is just an 8-pin mini DIN. Of course, I'll put the part number. I believe I got it from Mouser. I don't think Jeff had it, so I got it from Mouser. So we have this 8-pin mini DIN, and it has a metal ring in it. It has this metal ring that's got to come out because the spot here on either side, this alignment spot that let's see, that one's got one in it, this one's got one in it. Okay. The ground pins that we're really not going to need, these ground pieces here, tangs there that come out, we need that slot to align to our head. So I'm just going to work this back and forth. There's little tabs on it you can try pushing in. I tried pushing them in. I had no luck with that. I had a lot more luck just working it back and forth until they broke off like that. Careful not to tear up the other pins. Let me see. Okay with this. you just work them back and forth till it comes off. And I take a pick and I just push that back in there and there, so it's not in the way, sliding out like that. Flip it over. Do the same thing with those ones. Make sure they're fluff. And then you just take the pick and push it through, and then the little metal ring will come off. The little metal ring will come off. There you go. And then get a pair of pliers and just get the edge of it. Once you get it up enough, you just go back in. Okay, I'm going to give this one more try because I've done like a dozen of these. There we go. There we go. Comes right out. No problem, right? So we're taking out that metal ring. And so then we're left with our 8-pin mini din. And it's important that we make sure that we wire this up correctly, because the same wires that are coming up here through this mini pin are then going to continue on the male part of this pin, the male part of the connector, which is this piece here in the head. So we want to do a wiring diagram is always helpful. So here's our pin out. So I have our red and black, which are our 5 volts power and ground from the USB. The green and white, which are the TX and RX of the USB. Blue for our 5-volt pot, and then brown and orange, and then yellow, of course, for the negative side, the signal return for our pot, and then our signals for our 2 potentiometers. And so that is the wiring diagram, how I have set it up. And that is looking into the front of the pin, is how I've done it. I didn't do it in the back of the pin. As long as and there's going to be, you're going to have might do different heads, because I have the Huey head, and I also have the Huey head, and then I also have the Kiowa head, which I really haven't messed with other than getting it all built. They haven't come out with the Kiowa yet, so it would seem pointless to finish that head. So now I'm working on an AH64 head, because they've come out with that. So I'll probably get that done before I finish putting together the Kiowa head. All right, so that's that. So we are gonna do the same thing. We are gonna take our wires, and we're gonna put them on. We're gonna put our terminals on our wires, on the ends of our wires, our 8 wires coming out of here, and we are going to fit. Hello, Unabuna. I know. How are you? I'm a little busy here right now. Psst, 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 psst. Come on. Yes, come here. Oh, come here, sweetie. Oh, oh, oh. Okay, get down. Good girl. So, that was Una, by the way. So we're going to take and we're going to put this in, and it go in 2 ways. You can put it right side up or upside down. The thing is that if you put it in wrong in one of them, then the other things aren't going to match up. The other heads aren't going to match up. So make sure you get them all the same. So that's why in the wiring diagram, of course, making sure these are all facing up or correct are important. Okay, like I said, it only goes in 2 ways, and it's a snug fit. It's a really snug fit. There we go. Yeah. And that's going to push all the way down in until it seats. And the side of it, there's a little lip on these things. Let me see. Here's one. Here's the one I originally soldered. So this is when I soldered all those on. And let me tell you, soldering this on was a pain in the ass. And then in order to take it apart to fix an issue that I had down here, I had to cut it. So avoid that. Avoid that. Use the connectors. Use the terminals. You can solder them on if you want afterwards. Or hey, there's that one I was missing. But these things will fit snugly. This is when I push squeeze down already. I mean, they fit on there snug. Man, that's not coming off. You get that on there and it's going to stay on there. You won't need to solder it. But just to make sure that you heat shrink in between them. And this is where you're going to want this heat shrink will work. It'll fit, but it makes it kind of snug, which made it hard to go in the hole. Might not be an issue with this widened out, but if you're going to buy heat shrink anyways, get the smaller stuff. All right, so let me fix my light again. So you can glue this in too if you wanted to. You could put a bead of glue, and I did drop some super glue in the one that I had done. I dropped some super glue around the ridge here before I snapped it in place, but I was able to take it back out. I was able, once I flipped it over, I did just like I did before, and I pushed down on the two lands here, and it popped right out. And so so if you want to glue it in, put a little super glue around that ridge. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But there we are, with that in place. Now, our 8 wires are coming through, and now it's just a matter. We have our 2 screws. I had another screw here for this. There we go. And 2 times 10, and let's find one of the ones that's a countersunk. Stay. We'll just screw that in. So now the plug's going nowhere. If we bung this up at all, now's the time to take some sandpaper and sand it down. You can see here on this one where I put a ridge on it here, so that's going to need to be sanded down. Take a file, take a flat file, small flat file, and just file it flat, and do the same around here. Make sure that you don't have a bunch of ridges and sticking up out of there, because that might cause an issue. So we're going to lubricate this flat part here. Okay, we're just going to, because the throttle is going to ride there. So we're going to lubricate that. I think we're going to lubricate, there's 5 lands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 land areas. You'll see that in the STL file, but there's 5 land areas on that throttle, and you're going to want to lubricate it. I mean, I just take some of that blue lube that I used on the brake down on the bottom there, and I just splooge that stuff in there, and then I'll wipe it off, and then that's going to be our lubrication for the handle. And it also gives that nice hydraulic feel when you're moving that, when you turn the handle. So I'm going to line the sucker up with the potentiometer. And I'm going to push it on. I'm going to use a pair of pliers as a hammer again, because I used my hammer last time I was out. And let's see if I'm all the way in. Let me come over here for a second so I can see it. We're in. Okay. So now this is the point where we're going to take and we're going to put our wires onto our pins here, and they don't have to be really long because we're not soldering them. So I'll put my wires on my 8 pins here, following the wire diagram that we had, and then this is just going to snap into place. Boom, just like that. And then we're going to use our long M2. Man, I was sure I brought them over here from the other room. I bet the cat played with it. I'm going to grab a couple. Okay, so I bought these because I was doing metal work, so they're actually a fine thread. These are an M3, and they're a fine thread on there. They do make these. These are about, looks like 30 millimeters long. M3. But you can get the bolts that are made for screwing into plastic. Just make sure you lubricate them, okay? And then these, of course, will go down into here, and they're going to hold all of this together. And then our throttle, make sure our throttle, we got good rotation on our throttle from one side to the other. We have full rotation on the throttle. Now would be a good time. There we go. Yeah, it feels nice. Now, if you tighten these up really super tight, they might squeeze the plastic to where they interferes with the throttle a little bit. But if you have the top and the bottom, if you have the bottom lubricated, and if you lubricate it, and if you lubricate this area, the top of the throttle here, because that's a nice flat surface because it was printed with this facing down. All right, so that's a nice flat surface. That's a nice flat surface because that was printed facing down. Just a little lubrication there. Snug it up, tighten it up, and there you go. There's the base, all done. Thanks for watching. There's nothing really else I have to show you on this. I'm going to do a quick video. I have the stuff for the Huey head right here. So I'm just going to do another quick video on that and let you guys see how that goes together for those of you that have started printing. Talk to you in a few.